Hello and welcome to Fin24. Load shedding, dreaded load shedding, has severe implications on businesses and labour relations throughout the country. Today, to shed more light on the issue, excuse the pun, we have with us Jacques van Wyk, Director of Workmen's Attorneys, and Jacques is also an employment law specialist. Welcome, Jacques.
Thank you, yes, hello.
Jacques, load shedding seems to be something that's going to be with us for a while. When one thinks of load shedding and employment law, though, your mind immediately goes to the no work, no pay scenario. Does this apply?
It does not apply. And simply put, when the employee arrives at work and offers his or her services to the employer is obliged to pay the employee in terms of the contract of employment or in terms of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. The fact that the factory, for instance, isn't running is not the employee's fault, and the employer is obliged to pay nonetheless.
So an employer can't say to an employee, you arrived here at work at 8 this morning, we had load shedding from 10 till 12, we are not paying you for those 2 hours because there was no production.
As a general rule, no, the employer can't say that. There are some exceptions to those rules.
What would the exceptions to that be?
The employer and employees can agree to implement short time, for instance, as a measure to soften the blow on the business. The agreement might be on an individual basis, so the employee might agree that he or she will only be paid for the hours worked, or they may agree to get some time off in lieu of the time that they weren't able to work, or they may agree that they will shut down on certain days.
But it has to be an agreement between the employer and the employee. The employer cannot just take the decision that this is what's going to happen.
The employer cannot unilaterally impose that change to working hours. Working hours are regarded as a core term or material term of the employment contract, and the minute that the employee tenders his or her services, the obligation to pay for the working hours agreed arises. So the employer cannot unilaterally say to the employee, today you're only working 5 hours because I decide so. The employee will be entitled to claim the full 8-hour shift, for instance, notwithstanding the fact that there was only 5 hours work.
Load shedding also affects different industries on different levels. Can you elaborate on that?
Some industries have taken the initiative to reach agreement with their trade unions and employee organizations to work around load shedding. One of those industries is the Metal Engineering Industries Bargaining Council, which recently concluded a wage agreement with its trade unions, and part of that wage agreement was to agree that in regard to planned load shedding there would be some flexibility for the employer. For instance, if the employees arrive at work and it's planned load shedding, then the employees could be sent home, in which case they would get paid 4 hours, minimum of 4 hours wages, or they could stay behind, work whatever hours are available, and they would get paid 4 hours instead of the normal 8-hour shift. So there's an example of an industry which has tried to, through agreement, regulate how to deal with load shedding. But I must stress it's planned load shedding in that case.
What would be the difference between planned and unplanned load shedding? What are the implications on business, employer-employee relations with regard to planned and unplanned load shedding?
As we know, Eskom issues a schedule of load shedding, stages 1, 2 and 3, we all know those. Unfortunately, sometimes they can't anticipate breakdowns at power stations, and then they have to implement on very short notice. So the short notice is regarded as the unplanned load shedding, where the employer and its employees couldn't have anticipated the load shedding. In that case, in the example I mentioned, the Bargaining Council for the Metal Engineering Industries, there the employees would then be entitled to their full shift, full 8-hour pay.